My name is Effie, and at 65 years old, I thought I knew my children better than anyone. After losing my husband young, I built a catering business from nothing while raising Amanda, Jacob, and Sophia alone in Boston. Last Christmas, I prepared a feast fit for royalty in our historic family home. I never imagined my 3 children would stand up during dessert and publicly disown me. But the sealed envelopes I handed them afterward, their screams echoed through the neighborhood. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how my children lost absolutely everything by midnight. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood of Boston, I never imagined the twists my life would take. I married young at 23 to Thomas, my high school sweetheart. He was kind and loving, but struggled financially working as a mechanic at a local garage. We were happy, despite our modest means, and within 5 years, we had our 3 beautiful children, Amanda, Jacob, and Sophia. Our world shattered when Thomas suffered a massive heart attack one winter morning. He was only 33. I was 30, left alone with 3 small children, ages 8, 6, and 3. The funeral expenses depleted our minimal savings, and the reality of being a widow with no college education hit me hard. Those first years were a blur of exhaustion. I took any job I could find, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, all while trying to be present for my grieving children. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. The children would often find me at the kitchen table, slumped over bills, trying to figure out how to stretch our limited income. One day, when a neighbor complimented the cookies I'd made for a school function, a small idea took root. I had always loved cooking, learning everything from my grandmother, who had immigrated from Ireland. With $50 I could barely afford, I bought basic ingredients and started a small catering service from our tiny kitchen. At first, I just made desserts for neighbors' parties, then local business meetings. I would cook all night after the children went to sleep, catching quick naps while things baked. The children learned to help. Amanda organizing orders, little Jacob designing simple menus with crayons, and Sophia charming customers with her toddler smile. Slowly, painfully slowly, Effie's homemade catering grew. By the time Amanda was in high school, I had moved operations to a small commercial kitchen and hired 2 part-time employees. The sacrifices were endless. No vacations clothes from thrift stores, and working every holiday to cater others' celebrations, while my own children ate leftovers. As they grew, I noticed their personalities developing in distinct ways. Amanda, my eldest, was always the ambitious one. Straight-A student debate team captain, constantly talking about becoming a lawyer. Jacob had a creative streak, temperamental, but brilliant with designs and structures, dreaming of becoming an architect. Sophia, my baby, was admittedly a bit spoiled. Her charm could melt the coldest heart, and she always knew exactly what to say to get her way. I pushed myself to exhaustion to ensure they had opportunities I never did. When Amanda needed SAT prep courses, I took on extra events. When Jacob wanted special art classes, I extended our catering to breakfast services. When Sophia begged for dance lessons, I added wedding cakes to our offerings, despite barely knowing how to make them. The first signs of their materialism appeared during their teenage years, Amanda comparing our modest home to her friends' larger houses. Jacob sulking when his art supplies weren't the premium brands, Sophia crying when she couldn't have the designer clothes her classmates wore. Mom Brittany's parents took her to Paris for spring break, Sophia would complain. We can't always afford what others have, I would explain gently. But we have enough. Enough isn't enough anymore, she once replied, a statement that troubled me deeply. Still, I told myself it was normal teenage behavior. They would grow out of it. They would eventually appreciate the values of hard work and sacrifice I was trying to instill. How wrong I was. As they headed to college, all with scholarships I'd pushed them to achieve plus my financial support, I hoped they would gain perspective. Instead, being around wealthier students only seemed to increase their hunger for status and possessions. When they came home for breaks, their conversation increasingly centered on what they wanted, what they deserved, what they expected from life. Yet I remained determined. My children would have the security and opportunities I never had, even if they didn't fully appreciate how hard-won those opportunities were. I just needed to work harder, build the business, bigger, secure their futures more firmly. Then surely they would understand. I had no idea that my very determination to give them everything would ultimately cost us all so much. As my children entered adulthood, my catering business underwent a remarkable transformation. What began as a desperate widow's attempt to feed her children had evolved into Effie's Culinary Enterprises, a major regional food service company with contracts for corporate events, weddings, and even film productions, shooting in New England. Key decisions propelled our growth, securing a loan to purchase our own building, expanding into event planning, developing a line of specialty sauces that local grocery stores began carrying. Each step terrified me, but necessity made me braver than I felt. By my 55th birthday, I employed 35 people and had finally started paying myself a proper salary. Despite growing up in the business, washing dishes, helping with prep work, serving at events, my children showed increasing disinterest in its operations once they established their own careers. Amanda had become a corporate attorney at a prestigious Boston firm. Jacob had completed his architecture degree and joined an avant-garde design studio. Sophia, after several false starts, had cultivated a modest following as a lifestyle influencer, though her ventures required constant financial infusions from me. "Mom, that's all so blue-collar," Amanda said dismissively when I suggested she consider taking a role in the company's legal affairs. "I didn't go to law school to oversee catering contracts." With my new financial stability, I fulfilled a long-time dream, purchasing a historic home in Beacon Hill. The Victorian townhouse with its ornate woodwork needed renovation, but it represented everything I'd worked for. A permanent, beautiful home where my future grandchildren could visit, where family traditions could take root. The children's reaction to the house purchase was telling. "Must be nice to spend money like that," Jacob commented during his first visit, running his hand over the marble countertops I'd saved 3 years to install. "This place must be worth millions now." Amanda observed, more interested in the property value than its meaning to me. Sophia immediately began taking photos for her social media. "Mom, can I do a house tour for my followers? This place is totally content gold." Their interest in my growing financial stability coincided with their own increasing demands. Amanda needed help with the down payment on a luxury condo in Back Bay. "It's an investment, Mom. Property in this area only appreciates." The $250,000 I provided represented 5 years of carefully saved profits. Jacob required startup funding for his own design studio after clashing with his employers. "They don't understand true vision," he explained, presenting me with a business plan riddled with unrealistic projections. I gave him $170,000, knowing the risk, but unable to deny my son's dream. Sophia's requests were endless. Funds for a fashion blog that failed, a small boutique that closed within 8 months, a wellness coaching certification she never used. Each venture began with enthusiasm and ended with explanations about market forces beyond her control. None included repayment of my investment. As my 60th birthday approached, I began considering retirement. My longtime operations manager, Diane, who had been with me for 18 years, expressed interest in gradually taking over the company. My financial advisor, Martin, suggested we begin structuring a transition that would provide me with retirement income while preserving the business's integrity. This discussion of retirement seemed to trigger something in my children. Suddenly, they showed intense interest in my estate planning. "Mom, you need to think about the future," Amanda said during a Sunday dinner. "Have you updated your will recently? As your attorney daughter, I should really review it." Jacob began asking pointed questions about the business valuation. "If you sold outright, instead of this gradual transition to Diane, you'd have a much larger lump sum to work with." Sophia was least subtle. "Mom, you always said you built the business for us. Shouldn't we have some say in what happens with it?" Martin advised caution. During a private meeting, he expressed concern about my retirement security. "Effie, I understand wanting to leave a legacy for your children, but you've already given them substantial financial assistance. The business and home represent your security for what could be many years of retirement." I was considering his words when I overheard a conversation never meant for my ears. Arriving early to Amanda's condo for dinner, I was about to ring the bell when I heard my children's voices through the open patio door. "Mom's getting confused about money," Amanda was saying. "Did you see how she couldn't calculate the tip last week? We need to act before she makes decisions that affect our inheritance." "Diane has too much influence," Jacob added. "Mom's practically giving her our company." "We need to get her to sign things over now," Sophia insisted, "before she blows more money on charitable donations or employee benefits or whatever her latest bleeding heart cause is." I stood frozen car keys digging into my palm. These were my children. The babies I'd rocked through colic, the teenagers whose heartbreaks I'd soothed, the young adults whose education I'd sacrificed everything to fund. And they were plotting against me, discussing me as if I were an obstacle to their enrichment, rather than their mother. I quietly returned to my car and drove home in a daze. That night, I pulled out old photo albums tracing their faces from infancy to adulthood, searching for the moment I had gone so terribly wrong as a parent. What had I done to raise children who valued what I could give them more than who I was? Thanksgiving arrived with a bitter New England chill that matched my internal state. Since overhearing my children's conversation, I'd maintained a careful facade of normalcy while privately reassessing every interaction with them over recent years. Had I really raised such entitled, calculating people, or was this a terrible aberration I could somehow fix? I was preparing the guest room for my sister Barbara's visit when I needed to use Amanda's laptop, which she had left behind after helping me with online grocery ordering. Opening the computer, I discovered an email thread still visible. A conversation between my 3 children with the subject line, "Mom's Assets, Strategy Session." My hands trembled as I scrolled through dozens of messages detailing their plans. They had been coordinating for months, sharing information about my finances gleaned from casual conversations, discussing how to pressure me to sign over assets, and even exploring whether they could make a case that I was becoming too confused to manage my own affairs. Jacob had researched requirements for conservatorship. Amanda had consulted with an elder law specialist at her firm. Sophia had suggested introducing me to a nice man who was actually a financial advisor, friend of her boyfriend, who would recommend liquidating my assets. Most hurtful was their clinical assessment of what each of them deserved from my estate. "Mom spent more on Jacob's failed design studio than on my condo," Amanda wrote. "I should get the house to make things even." "The business was built on my childhood," Jacob argued. "I sacrificed having a normal mother so she could work constantly. The business proceeds should primarily come to me." "You both got more attention growing up," Sophia countered. "I deserve financial compensation for the emotional neglect." They spoke of my life's work, my business, my home, my savings, as spoils to be divided with no consideration for my needs or wishes. The business that had kept them fed and clothed as children, the home I had purchased hoping to fill with family gatherings, all reduced to dollar amounts they felt entitled to before I was even gone. I closed the laptop and sat in perfect stillness, a strange calm, replacing the initial shock. There was no more room for doubt or self-deception. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a momentary lapse in judgment on their part. This was who they had become. The next morning, I called Gerald Franklin, my attorney for the past 15 years. "I need to see you immediately," I told him. "It's about my children and my estate." In Gerald's wood-paneled office, I laid out everything I had discovered. His expression grew increasingly grave. "I wish I could say I'm completely surprised, Effie," he said finally. "But I should tell you that each of your children has independently contacted me over the past year." "Contacted you about what?" "Asking questions about your will, the business structure, the house deed. Testing the waters to see what information I might share." He adjusted his glasses. "I, of course, maintained client confidentiality and told them nothing, but their persistence was concerning." I stared out his office window at the Boston skyline buildings gleaming in the late autumn sun. For decades, every decision I'd made had been filtered through one question: what's best for my children? Now I had to ask a different question: what's best for me? And perhaps, what lesson do my children truly need? "Gerald," I said finally, "I want to make some changes, significant ones, and I want to create a test, one last opportunity for my children to show me who they really are." Over the next 3 weeks, Gerald and I worked with my financial team to restructure everything. We created an employee ownership plan for the business, ensuring Diane and my loyal staff would control the company's future. We placed the house in an irrevocable trust, benefiting a local organization supporting single parents, something that could only be changed with multiple trustees' approval. We consolidated my retirement funds into protected accounts that would provide me with security, regardless of what happened with my other assets. And we prepared 3 identical envelopes, each containing documents tailored to one of my children, to be presented only if absolutely necessary. I prayed I would never need to open them. As Thanksgiving dinner concluded without incident, I allowed myself a small hope that perhaps my children would prove me wrong. Perhaps discovering their plotting had been a blessing in disguise, prompting me to protect myself while still giving them a chance to show me a better side of themselves. Christmas would reveal the truth one way or another. The morning of December 25th dawned clear and cold, sunlight glinting off fresh snow that had fallen overnight. I rose before dawn, my body running on anxiety and determination rather than sleep. Today would require every ounce of strength I possessed. In the kitchen, I began the elaborate meal preparations I had planned weeks ago. Roast turkey with my special herb stuffing, Amanda's favorite cranberry orange relish, Jacob's beloved sweet potato casserole with the pecan topping, Sophia's requested truffle mashed potatoes. Despite everything, I prepared each dish with care, my hands working through familiar motions while my mind churned with uncertainty. Each stir of the mixing bowl, each careful measurement felt like a potential last time. Would this be the final Christmas I cooked for my children? The thought brought tears that I quickly blinked away. Sentiment was a luxury I couldn't afford today. By 3 o'clock, the house filled with delicious aromas and arriving family. My sister Barbara and her husband came first, then Thomas's brother Michael, and his family cousins from Providence, my oldest friend Patricia, who had been widowed the same year as me. 14 people in total would witness whatever happened today. The children arrived together at 4:30, a half-hour late. They entered as a unit, Amanda leading as usual, all 3, embracing me with what felt like performative affection. I noticed them exchanging glances, whispering, when they thought I was occupied with other guests. The envelopes waited in my study, though I still hoped I wouldn't need them. Gift exchange proceeded awkwardly. I had purchased modest presents this year, books, scarves, specialty foods, rather than the expensive items they had grown accustomed to. Their gifts to me seemed hastily selected. Generic perfume from Sophia, a kitchen gadget from Jacob, A gift certificate from Amanda. Money's been a little tight this year in the firm, Amanda explained about her uncharacteristically inexpensive gift, though I knew she had recently been made partner with a substantial salary increase. During appetizers, Jacob asked with studied casualness, "So, Mom, how did your meeting go with that financial advisor Martin mentioned? The estate planning specialist." "Oh, we had a productive conversation," I replied vaguely. "Everything's been taken care of." The children exchanged another look. As we settled around the dining room table, the tension was palpable beneath the festive setting. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light. The good china gleamed against deep red placemats. Outside, snow began falling again, large flakes drifting past leaded glass windows. Throughout dinner, small comments landed like little darts. "This house must cost a fortune to heat in winter," Jacob observed, eyeing the high ceilings. "Quite the place for just one person," Amanda added. "You should let me film a Christmas home tour for my social media," Sophia suggested. "My followers would love to see how the other half lives." The other half? As if I were someone separate from them, someone who hadn't worked her fingers raw to provide every advantage they'd ever enjoyed. As dessert was served, my traditional bûche de Noël that took 2 days to prepare, Amanda cleared her throat and glanced at her siblings. They nodded slightly. "Mom," she began, setting down her fork, "we need to talk about something important." The room quieted. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. Amanda stood assuming the posture she likely used in courtroom arguments. "For many years we've tried to maintain a relationship with you despite the difficulties, but recent events have made that impossible to continue." Jacob rose next. "Growing up, your business always came first. We were raised by babysitters while you built your company. The emotional neglect has had lasting effects on all of us." Sophia completed the tribunal tears that seemed rehearsed glistening in her eyes. "We've tried to communicate our feelings, but you've never really listened. You've manipulated us with money using financial support to control our choices." Amanda delivered the final blow. "We've discussed this at length and made a difficult decision. We're formally cutting ties with you, effective immediately." The silence that followed was absolute. Around the table, faces registered shock, confusion, embarrassment. My brother-in-law stared fixedly at his plate. Cousin Teresa's mouth hung slightly open. Patricia reached for my hand under the table. I felt strangely calm. They had shown me exactly who they were removing any lingering doubt or hope. Now I could act with complete clarity. "I understand," I said quietly, rising from my seat. "If you'll excuse me for just a moment." I walked to my study, with measured steps retrieved the 3 envelopes from my desk drawer, and returned to the hushed dining room. Everyone remained exactly as I had left them, as if frozen in a macabre tableau. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I've been anticipating this conversation. I prepared something for each of you." I handed each child their designated envelope. "Please open these now." The dining room remained utterly silent as my children tore open their envelopes with varying degrees of confusion and suspicion. Each contained several documents organized in the same order but personalized to their individual situations. I stood at the head of the table watching as they began to read. The first document in each envelope was a detailed accounting of every financial contribution I had made to that particular child since their 18th birthday. College tuition, down payments, business investments, luxury vacations I had funded, designer wardrobes, rent subsidies during tight months. The totals at the bottom of each page were substantial, ranging from just over $1 million for Jacob to nearly $2 million for Sophia, with her multiple failed businesses. The second document contained printed copies of their own emails and text messages, discussing their plans to seize control of my assets including transcripts of phone conversations I had legally recorded after discovering their plotting. In Amanda's envelope, I included copies of the conservatorship research she had conducted. In Jacob's, the estimated property values and potential sales proceeds he had calculated for my home. In Sophia's screenshots of messages to her followers hinting at a major lifestyle upgrade coming soon once she had access to family resources. The third document was perhaps the most devastating. The recently executed legal papers showing I had already transferred majority ownership of Effie's culinary enterprises to an employee stock ownership plan. Diane and the staff, who had actually shown loyalty over the years, now controlled the company's future. A small portion of shares remained in my name to provide retirement income, but the business would never pass to my children. The fourth item was a copy of the irrevocable trust documentation for my home establishing that upon my eventual death, the property would transfer to the New Beginnings Foundation, a non-profit supporting single parents in establishing financial independence. Parents who, like me, were struggling to build something meaningful while raising children alone. The final document was a simple bank statement showing my personal accounts. Comfortable but modest, sufficient for my needs, but far less than the windfall they had clearly been anticipating. Amanda was the first to react, her attorney's mind grasping the implications faster than the others. The color drained from her face. "What have you done?" she whispered, then louder. "What have you done?" Her scream shattered the silence. Jacob began flipping frantically through his papers as if searching for some document that might contradict what he was seeing. "The business is gone," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table, causing water glasses to jump and spill. "You gave our company to the employees." Sophia was staring at the total of what I'd already given her, $1,876,342.16 over 12 years, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "You can't do this," Amanda insisted, lawyer mode activating. This is elder abuse, self-abuse. We'll contest it. We'll reverse all of it." "No, you won't," I replied calmly. Gerald had me undergo extensive psychological evaluation before any paperwork was signed. 3 separate doctors confirmed I'm of completely sound mind. The business transfer was legally executed with full corporate governance compliance. The house trust is irrevocable. Everything has been done correctly and definitively. Amanda lunged for her phone. "I'm calling Harrison," she snapped, referring to a senior partner at her firm. "Feel free," I said, "though you should know that Harrison sits on the ethics board that would review any case where an attorney attempts to invalidate legal documents they dislike for personal financial gain." Jacob's rage took a different form. He swept his arm across the table, sending the antique china I'd collected piece by piece over decades crashing to the floor. "You vindictive bitch!" He snarled a phrase I'd never imagined hearing from my son's mouth. "Jacob!" My sister Barbara gasped. Sophia had progressed to sobbing makeup streaming down her face. "You've ruined everything," she cried. "How could you do this to your own children?" "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "You did. When you decided I was worth more to you dead than alive. When you plotted to take everything I've built before I was even gone. When you valued my assets over my love." The extended family sat in stunned silence, witnessing the implosion of what they had always believed was a close-knit family. "I think," my brother-in-law finally said, standing awkwardly, "that those of us not directly involved should give you some privacy to discuss this." "No need," Amanda snapped, gathering her papers and shoving them back into the envelope. "This discussion is over, and so is our relationship with our mother, though for very different reasons than we initially stated." The 3 of them stormed out. Sophia still sobbing, Jacob kicking over a chair, Amanda rigid with cold fury. The front door slammed so hard that an ornament fell from the Christmas tree, shattering on the hardwood floor. In their wake, the remaining family members looked at me with expressions ranging from shock to uncomfortable sympathy. "They'll calm down," my cousin suggested weakly. I shook my head. "No, they won't. Because this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about money they believed was theirs by right of birth. They just lost what they wanted most." As the stunned family members helped clear the ruined dinner, I moved through my home in a daze. The beautiful Christmas I had planned lay in shambles, but an odd sense of peace had settled over me. For the first time in decades, I had acted in my own interest rather than my children's. The weight of their expectations, their manipulations, their entitlement had lifted. But the night was far from over. Their initial reaction was just the beginning of what would become the most painful Christmas of my life. And theirs. The hours after my children's dramatic exit passed in a blur of awkward conversation and early departures. By 7:30, only my sister Barbara, her husband, and Patricia remained, helping restore order to the dining room and offering quiet support. No one quite knew what to say. What words could possibly address what had happened? "You should stay with us tonight," Barbara suggested, concern etched on her face. "I don't think you should be alone." "I appreciate that," I said, carefully wrapping surviving pieces of my grandmother's china. "But I need to be in my own home. This is where I belong." By 9 o'clock, I had convinced them I was fine, sending them off with careful hugs and promises to call in the morning. As the door closed behind them, silence enveloped the house, a silence both painful and purifying. I had just settled into my reading chair with a glass of brandy when my phone began vibrating with incoming calls and texts. All 3 children reaching out separately. "Amanda, we need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. Jacob, you've made a serious mistake. Let me come back so we can fix this." Sophia, "Mom, please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please call me." I set the phone aside without responding. Their words meant nothing now. Only actions would matter going forward, and I suspected their actions would reveal their true priorities once again. Shortly before 10, a sharp knock at the front door startled me. Through the security peephole, I saw all 3 of them standing on the porch, huddled against the cold. When I opened the door, their expressions had transformed. Gone was the naked rage, replaced by contrite smiles and pleading eyes. "Mom," Amanda began, voice honeyed with the conciliatory tone she used with difficult clients. "We've had some time to think, and we realize we spoke out of turn earlier." "We were emotional," Jacob added. "Family gatherings can bring up complicated feelings." "We love you so much," Sophia insisted, eyes wide with manufactured sincerity. "Can we please come in and talk this through as a family?" I regarded them silently for a long moment. These adult strangers who had once been my beloved children. Then I stepped aside, allowing them to enter. One last conversation seemed appropriate, a clean conclusion to what had been broken beyond repair. In the living room, they arranged themselves carefully. Amanda perched on the edge of the sofa, Jacob standing by the fireplace. Sophia curled in an armchair, looking small and vulnerable. A tableau of penitent children, ready to make amends. "Mom," Amanda began, clearly designated as spokesperson. "We reacted poorly earlier because we were shocked. The way you presented those documents felt like an ambush." "An ambush," I repeated flatly. "Like the one you planned for today, announcing you were cutting ties with me in front of the entire family." She had the grace to flush slightly. "That was badly handled. We were frustrated by what we perceived as your unwillingness to discuss the future of the business and this house." "And why should I discuss the future of my business and my house with you? Neither belongs to you." "We're your children," Jacob interjected. "Your legacy. Everything you've built was for us. You've always said that. I built a life for us, I corrected. I ensured you were fed, clothed, educated, and launched into successful careers with significant financial advantages. I did not build assets for you to seize before I'm even gone. No one was trying to seize anything, Amanda objected. We were concerned about proper estate planning. I laughed, then a sound so devoid of humor it startled even me. Please stop insulting my intelligence. It's the one thing you haven't yet tried to take from me. I crossed to my desk and retrieved a small digital recorder. After I discovered your emails, I became concerned about what else you might be planning, so I took precautions. I pressed play. Their voices filled the room recorded during a conversation in my kitchen 3 weeks earlier, while I was supposedly upstairs resting. Amanda's voice. Once we get control of the assets, we'll need to move quickly to liquidate before she changes her mind. Jacob. The business is worth at least $10 million if we sell to that restaurant group. Sophia. And the house is in a prime location, even if we have to put her in assisted living to get it done. Amanda again. She's becoming difficult, questioning our motives. We need to accelerate the timeline. I stopped the recording. They stared in horror, realizing that while they had been monitoring and manipulating me, I had been documenting their conspiracy. That's taken out of context, Amanda stammered. There is no context that makes this acceptable, I replied. You plotted to declare me incompetent, to put me in a facility against my will, to take everything while I'm still alive and healthy. We were worried about your decision-making, Jacob attempted. My decision-making built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. My decision-making put you through the best schools. My decision-making has been sound enough to see exactly what you've become. The pretense of reconciliation evaporated. Amanda's expression hardened. Fine, you've outsmarted us. Congratulations. But you've also guaranteed you'll die alone. Hope it was worth it. I'm already alone, I said quietly. I've been alone since the moment my children decided I was worth more as an estate than as a mother. Sophia began crying again, though whether from genuine remorse or manipulation was impossible to tell. You've ruined us, she sobbed. Do you know what this will do to me? To my brand? Before I could answer, a series of notifications sounded from their phones. All three reached for their devices simultaneously. Amanda's face went pale. Richard is leaving me, she whispered, staring at her screen. He says after what he witnessed today, he doesn't recognize who I've become. He's filing for divorce. Jacob's reaction was rage. Sam is dissolving our partnership. He can't do that. The firm is my vision. Sophia screamed a sound of pure distress. My followers, they're unfollowing by the thousands. Someone posted video of me yelling in the street after we left, I'm being canceled. As midnight approached, my children faced the true meaning of losing everything. Not just the inheritance they'd coveted, but the husband who could no longer respect his wife's character, the business partner who couldn't trust his colleagues' integrity, the social media following built on Sophia's carefully curated image of positivity and authenticity. They left separately this time. Amanda with cold fury promising legal consequences, though we both knew there would be none. Jacob with bitter accusations that I had never loved them. Sophia with hysterical recriminations about her destroyed career. As the grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight, I stood alone in my living room, Christmas tree lights blinking in the darkness. I had won by any objective measure. I had protected myself from their schemes. I had secured my future on my own terms. Yet as tears finally came, I recognized that in winning this battle, we had all lost something precious that might never be recovered. January arrived with bitter cold and long nights that mirrored my emotional landscape. The house felt cavernous and empty. I moved through rooms filled with memories questioning everything about the past 40 years. Had my children always been this way? Had my parenting created their sense of entitlement? Was there betrayal? Somehow my failure. The first week after Christmas, I barely left my bedroom. Food held no appeal. Sleep came in restless bursts, punctuated by vivid dreams of happier times. Amanda's graduation, Jacob's first architecture award, Sophia's childhood dance recitals. I would wake with momentary warmth that quickly chilled as reality returned. "You're experiencing grief," Dr. Levine told me during our first session in mid-January. I had finally sought help at Diane's insistence after she found me sitting in my darkened office, staring at old family photos. "They're still alive," I objected. "You're grieving the children you thought you had," she explained. "The family you believed existed. That's a profound loss." Over those first months, unexpected support emerged from various quarters. Diane visited regularly, bringing meals and company. My sister called daily. Thomas's family, who had witnessed the Christmas disaster, rallied around me with surprising loyalty. "We always knew something wasn't right with how they treated you," my sister-in-law confessed. "But we didn't want to overstep." Most surprisingly, several employees from the company organized a weekly dinner rotation. They would arrive with food and updates about the business, ensuring I remained connected to the world I had built. Their kindness both touched and confused me. "Why are you doing this?" I asked Maria, a pastry chef who had worked for me for 11 years, as she delivered a cassoulet one snowy evening. "Because you did the same for me when my husband died," she replied simply. "You brought food every Sunday for 3 months. You remember that?" I didn't not specifically. There had been many employees facing personal crises over the years, and I had always tried to support them as I would want to be supported. "You built more family than you realized," Maria added, squeezing my hand before leaving. By spring, I had established new routines. Morning walks through Beacon Hill, volunteer work at a community center teaching cooking skills to teenagers, weekly therapy sessions, lunch meetings with Gerald to establish a formal foundation using my retirement funds to help single parents establish businesses. I learned to sit with both my anger and my sorrow without being consumed by either. I accepted that while I had made mistakes as a parent, my children's actions reflected their choices, not just my failings. Each child attempted contact in their own way as their personal situations deteriorated. Amanda reached out first in late February after her divorce was finalized. Richard had discovered financial improprieties during the proceedings. She had been diverting joint funds to secret accounts for years. Her law firm placed her on probation after clients complained about aggressive billing practices. Her message was carefully worded. "I've been reflecting on my behavior and recognize I've caused harm. Would you be open to a conversation about moving forward?" Jacob contacted me in April after his architectural practice collapsed. Without Sam's connections and financial backing, clients had quickly abandoned the firm. His reputation for brilliant but unreliable work had caught up with him. His approach was more emotional. "Mom, I'm struggling. I said unforgivable things. I need your help to get back on my feet. Please don't shut me out." Sophia's fall was most public. The video of her post-Christmas meltdown went viral in influencer circles, revealing a side her followers had never seen. Subsequent posts attempting to explain only worsened matters. By May, her sponsorships had evaporated and she was facing eviction from her apartment. Her messages grew increasingly desperate. "I have nowhere to go. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't know what else to do." I responded to each with the same careful message, crafted with Dr. Levine's guidance. "I'm open to beginning a healing process, but it must include individual therapy for you, family therapy for us together, complete financial transparency, and the understanding that trust must be rebuilt gradually over time. There will be no financial assistance without these conditions being met. Amanda refused initially, insisting therapy was unnecessary. 2 months later, after losing a major client, she reluctantly agreed. Jacob accepted immediately, desperate for any connection. His sincerity remained questionable, but his efforts seemed genuine. Sophia alternated between angry rejection and pleading acceptance of my terms, eventually settling into consistent therapy after living briefly in her car. Our first family therapy session in July was excruciating. Seated in Dr. Hernandez's office, we circled each other verbally like wounded animals, decades of resentment and misunderstanding surfacing in painful bursts. "You never saw us as individuals," Jacob accused. "We were extensions of your ambition." "You gave us things instead of time," Amanda added. "You made us feel like we were never enough," Sophia cried. Their words contained kernels of truth, embedded in self-serving narratives. I acknowledged what resonated, challenged what didn't. I made mistakes, I conceded. I focused on providing security sometimes at the expense of emotional presence. But nothing justifies what you plan to do to me. By fall, we had established a fragile, limited relationship. Sunday dinners once a month, always in public restaurants to maintain neutral territory. Brief supervised visits at holidays. No financial entanglements of any kind. 2 of my children seemed genuinely committed to rebuilding some form of relationship. One continued the patterns of manipulation, eventually removing herself from our tentative new family configuration. Meanwhile, my own life expanded in unexpected directions. The foundation supporting single-parent entrepreneurs awarded its first grants. I began mentoring young food industry professionals. I joined a widow's travel group visiting places Thomas and I had dreamed of seeing together. At 66, I discovered that the end of one family story could lead to the beginning of a different, broader community. By the following Christmas, I hosted a small, careful gathering. Not the lavish celebration of previous years, but a quiet evening with those who had shown true care during my darkest times. Diane and her husband, Patricia, my sister's family, a few loyal friends. 2 of my children attended briefly, their presence, both comforting and tentative. We ate simple food, exchanged modest gifts, shared honest conversation. No pretense, no hidden agendas, just people who had chosen to be present for each other. As I looked around my dining room that evening, I realized the profound lesson of the previous year. Family is not just who shares your blood, but who shows up authentically in your life. Love is not measured in inheritance expectations, but in consistent acts of care. And sometimes the most painful losses clear space for unexpected new connections. I don't know if my children and I will ever fully repair what was broken. Trust once shattered mends slowly, if at all. But I know now that my worth was never in what I could provide them materially. It was always in the love I gave freely, the values I tried to instill, the example I set through my own life. For those watching this who have experienced family betrayal or difficult choices between self-preservation and family loyalty, please know you're not alone. What was your turning point in a challenging family situation? Did you ever have to make a difficult choice to protect yourself from loved ones? Share your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and renewal. Remember that sometimes the bravest thing we do is set boundaries with those we love most. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find peace in your own family journey.